They told me to move for security purposes. My boarding pass said 1A. My name in clean black ink, my hands shaking just enough to give me away. If it were you, what would you have done? I'm Ariel Monroe, 16, a robotics kid who spends too many nights drawing circuits in a beat-up cloth-bound notebook. They invited me to Geneva to speak about a wearable AI I built that reads tiny facial cues so nonverbal kids can tell you how they feel. First class wasn't a gift, it wasn't a favor, it was an acknowledgement that the work mattered. The cabin had that late-night hush, the soft hum that vibrates in your bones, the kind of cold air that makes you hyper-aware of your heartbeat. I remember the leather strap of my backpack digging into my shoulder, the window showing nothing but runway lights, and my own reflection, a ghost of a girl pretending to be calm. Yeah, that happened. She came out of nowhere, crisp white blouse tucked into gray slacks, lipstick, too loud for that hour, a smile like a warning label. "You're in my seat," she said, like we were playing musical chairs and I'd missed the last note. I checked the pass again. 1A, Ariel Monroe, and lifted it so she could see. "No, ma'am," I said, "this is mine." She didn't even blink. She took the paper right out of my hand without asking and called down the galley like she owned the aisle. "Brianna." The lead flight attendant arrived with perfect posture and the kind of smile people use when they're about to tell you no. She glanced at the pass still in the woman's fingers, glanced at me, and landed on an expression I've seen too many times. Polite doubt. "Miss Monroe, we need your cooperation," she said softly. "A VIP checked in late. It's temporary. We'll make it right." I felt a familiar tired sink into my bones, the tired that shows up when you've been nudged out of spaces you earned, and they expect you to apologize for the inconvenience. Restaurants, museum lines, classrooms where your project is too ambitious for the rubric. You know what I mean. Pattern interrupt. I almost stood up. I almost said, "Sure, no problem. Economy is fine. I'll be quiet." Then I saw my reflection in the glass again, a transparent version of me shrinking, and I thought of Jacob, the little boy, who used my device to tell his mom he was scared for the first time in his life. That's what this seat was about. Voice presence, not comfort. My mother's voice floated up from a kitchen 3 years gone, mint tea and rain on the window. "Kindness doesn't ask permission to exist, baby, it just is." I didn't feel kind. I felt steady. "This is my seat," I told Brianna. "No," the woman snapped. "It's mine." Her name, I'd learn later, was Victoria Granger. Something small but important happened next. An older man in a corduroy blazer stood 2 rows back and said in a warm, stern voice, "If the ticket says 1A, she sits in 1A. It landed like a pebble in a lake. Ripples. Brianna backed away to check with the captain. Victoria rolled her eyes in a way meant for an audience. The hum of the engines felt louder, like the plane itself was waiting to see who we were. I made a choice. I stayed seated, straight-backed, hands on the notebook that's seen me through science fairs and sleepless nights. Not because I was scared, because I knew the next thing I did would teach everyone in that cabin how to treat me for the rest of the flight. "If it were you, would you have moved just to keep the peace?" Brianna returned with the second attendant, a younger guy with nervous energy. "Miss Monroe," she tried again, "for security purposes, we need you to relocate to economy until we can resolve the manifest." Security purposes. That phrase lands differently when you're a black girl occupying a space someone else decided you don't belong in. I stood up, not to move to speak. "Do I look like a security threat?" I asked, not loud, not sweet, just clear. Forks paused mid-air, conversations died mid-sentence, and for a second you could hear the click of watches. I'm 16, I said. I've won 3 national AI awards. I'm flying to speak in Geneva, and my name is on 1A. What's the threat here? Your discomfort. Silence stretched. Then one clap hesitant. Another. A few more joined like a cabin remembering how to breathe. Victoria scoffed like the applause offended her. The younger attendant looked relieved like he'd been waiting for permission to be human. Brianna's smile, the one meant to fix things, slipped. There was a man sitting in business class, with a closed book in his lap, head tilted like he was listening for thunder. I didn't know he was watching me, didn't know he'd chosen a seat a few rows back on purpose. My father does that. Moves quiet, lets a room show its face before he shows his. Tech magnate is what the world calls him. To me, he's Dad, the man who taught me the difference between silence that surrenders and silence that declares. And he was on that flight, under a different name, observing a crew he'd flagged for a bias review. I didn't know, not yet. We pushed back from the gate, but something in the air stayed wrong, like the argument was still hovering over row 1. The captain's voice came on, calm, practiced. We're troubleshooting a minor systems delay. Translation. Something's offline. Maybe the Wi-Fi. Maybe basic decency. I tested my own breathing slow in, slow out, fingers pressed to the worn corner of my notebook. Wait, I told myself. Choose your moment. Pattern interrupt. I chose silence. Not the kind that gives up, the kind that draws a line. My father says when silence is dignified, it's louder than rage. I didn't know he was 3 rows back, saying nothing on purpose, letting people reveal themselves. And they did. 2 men in blazers snickered about stocks and seats like cruelty was a private joke. A black couple exchanged a look I understood without words. The older man in corduroy stared straight ahead, jaw set, the kind of ally who means it. The plane felt like a town square with the lights dimmed. Stick around, I'm telling you right now, because what happened next will blow your mind. The cockpit door opened. The captain stepped out, uniform crisp, jaw tight, the posture of a person used to being obeyed. He glanced at Victoria, then at me, then at Brianna, and for half a second I saw him wrestle with the easy choice. For departure, he said carefully, we'll need the young lady to relocate. I inhaled, ready to argue. I didn't have to. A man in a charcoal jacket stood from business class and walked toward us like weather moving in, slow, certain. He placed his hand lightly on my shoulder, not to claim me, to anchor me. She's not moving, he said. The co-pilot stepped into the aisle, voice quick, Sir, please return to your seat. The man, my father, took out a small black wallet with a gold seal I'd only seen on news clips and slid it into the co-pilot's hand. Color drained from the man's face. Brianna leaned in, saw the seal, and stepped back like she'd touched a live wire. Twist. My father wasn't just my father. He had federal compliance authority tied to aviation, the kind of card people think is a myth until it's in their hand. He'd also invested in the airline's training systems years back, the boring kind of power that doesn't trend, but changes how things work. He looked at the crew, voice low enough to be merciful and sharp enough to be final. This flight is under audit. Then he turned to me softer. You already did the hard part. The cabin shifted shape. The whisper bros shut up. Victoria's mouth opened and nothing came out. The captain cleared his throat and tried for diplomacy. My father didn't raise his voice. He made the truth impossible to dodge. Pattern interrupt. And then my stomach dropped. I reached for the seat pocket to check my things and found air. My insulin kit. The small blue case that goes everywhere with me. Gone. I felt the floor tilt under my feet. My insulin, I said too quickly, it's missing. People turned as if looking harder would make it appear. The younger attendant started opening bins. "We prepped 1A for the VIP," he said, eyes wide. Maybe it was tossed. Tossed. The word crawled under my skin. My father pressed the call button, and whatever softness was in his face turned to steel. "Captain," he said, calm and deadly, "we need medical protocol now." The captain didn't argue. He radios, voice tight. "Locate the passenger's insulin kit. 60 seconds. Victoria straightened, chin high. "I didn't touch anything," she said too fast. My father looked at her with that slow, unblinking stare that makes people tell the truth. "Did you remove anything from the seat pocket?" he asked. Her eyes skittered away. "I thought it was trash," she whispered. "Do you think that's fair? Do you think that's harmless?" Brianna reappeared from the galley at a run, holding the blue case like a fragile bird. "Found it," she said, breathless, in the trash. My hands trembled when she gave it to me. I checked the vials, counted, closed my eyes for one full second of clean relief. The cabin let out a noise that wasn't cheering and wasn't a groan. A human sound, anger and relief tied in a knot. A woman in row 5 said, "She could have died." A man muttered, "This is criminal." Victoria sat down slowly, the fight gone out of her posture. The captain came on the PA, and for the first time he spoke like a person, not a script. "An incident occurred that should not have happened," he said. "And it wasn't a protocol failure, it was a failure of judgment and bias." You could feel the cabin shift, the way people reposition themselves when they realize they're part of a story that matters. Passengers stood up, not to perform, to witness. An older black woman with a cane told us about growing up in Alabama paper bag lunches because restaurants wouldn't seat her buses where the back was the rule. A man with a neat blue shirt said he sees it at the office, how discomfort gets treated like danger. A kindergarten teacher said her black students get labeled disruptive for asking the same questions as other kids. The plane became a quiet town hall at 30,000 feet. "If it were you, would you have spoken up?" Brianna came to me with 2 bottles of water and eyes rimmed red. "I'm sorry," she said, and I believed she meant it. "You didn't say anything when it mattered." I told her that was the moment. She nodded, swallowed. "I'm saying something now." "Then let it change you," I said. "Don't say it to feel better, say it to do better. You know what I mean." My father walked to a young maintenance tech near row 6, a guy named Micah, who'd spoken up earlier when it wasn't safe. "You'll lead the internal report," my father told him. Micah blinked. "Sir, I'm ground crew." "You're leadership now," Dad said. And I watched Micah stand taller by an inch, like the weight on his back had turned into purpose. We were still on the ground. There was real talk of deplaning, of the flight being grounded. My father looked at me not as a child, as a co-pilot. "Home?" he asked quietly. I surprised myself. "Geneva," I said. He smiled, small, proud, the kind that says you're writing this now. The captain faced the cabin again. On behalf of the flight deck, he said, "I apologize to Miss Monroe and to everyone who watched bias do what it does in real time. We will be better." "Do you believe apologies matter or only actions?" "Actions," my father said, reading the room and honestly reading me. He handed Brianna a slim black folder, a framework he'd written years ago for equity training and real-time accountability. Not a PR pamphlet, a checklist with teeth. "Pilot it now," he said. Micah announced over the PA, voice steady this time, that a zero-tolerance audit would roll out fleet-wide beginning with this crew. The applause that followed wasn't loud, it was unanimous. We took off into a night that felt cleaner. I watched the wing cut through cloud and wrote a title across a fresh page in my notebook, "The Window Seat." and under it, dignity should never require proof of worth. My dad glanced and nodded. "Start with a story," he said. So I did. On Flight 722, I wrote a girl was asked to move because no one asked who she was until she stood. If you saw one wrong, what else might you be missing? Geneva greeted us with a soft gold morning. The Robotics Congress banner said, "Welcome," and then to my shock, my name. Reporters held out mics. I don't love microphones, but I said what felt true. Technology is only as meaningful as the humanity it serves, I told them, and last night proved we need better systems to guard that humanity. The captain asked me to help draft a passenger dignity charter. "Me," I said. "You," he said, "because you lived it." We pushed tables together in a glass room that smelled like coffee and new carpet. Pilots, attendants, 2 FAA folks, a few passengers, my father Micah, even Brianna. We built the window seat charter line by line, not pretty language, but policies that would hold up on a rough day. Ask twice. Verify documentation before honoring a complaint rooted in discomfort. Stand still. Protect a passenger who refuses relocation when their ticket is correct. Medical first. Never discard or move medical supplies during seat swaps. Witness wait. Prioritize corroboration from bystanders when bias is suspected. Real-time feedback loops. Quarterly public reports. Training modules with the exact scenario we had just lived. Victoria showed up. Not escorted, not dramatic. She looked human, pride, cracked eyes, tired. "I want to help fund this," she said. My father met her eyes. "Money doesn't erase harm," he said, "but it can build the thing that makes the next harm harder." She nodded. Was she sincere or saving face? I don't know, do you? We presented the charter that afternoon. There wasn't a standing ovation. There was a room full of people nodding in the same rhythm, a sound of pens scratching signatures that meant we'd moved the needle from feeling bad to doing better. My father put a hand on my shoulder as we walked out to a courtyard that smelled like jasmine. "Did I pull rank?" he asked, and I heard the argument already forming in the comments. "Yeah," I said, "and I'm okay with it." He nodded slowly. "You saved yourself," he said. "I just made the system look in a mirror. Here's where the ending gets messy in a way I hope makes you talk." The airline agreed to pilot the window seat charter on several routes to publish audit results to promote people like Micah who choose truth when it costs something. Brianna asked to help lead training and asked for mentorship from a senior attendant known for doing the right thing when nobody's watching. Victoria committed to fund an independent audit for a year. My device Auroran got a test slot in 2 European clinics, and the next day a kid in Zurich used it to tell his dad he was hungry, which put me back in my hotel bathroom crying, forehead on the cool tile, grateful. Also true. A friend sent me a video of another passenger being asked to move from a seat she paid for. Different airline, same script. It burned. We have so much work to do. So let's open the door to the fight. I know is coming in the comments. Should my father have used power like that? Or should we expect change to come without a card that can ground a plane? Do you think grounding a flight is too far? Or the only volume the system hears when discomfort tries to wear a badge? Should accountability depend on who is watching? Or should it be baked into every policy so a 16-year-old doesn't have to stand still and teach a cabin how to see her? If it were you in that seat, what would you have wanted? Here's my truth, and it's not a bow you can tie clean. Dignity isn't a perk you upgrade into. It's the cost of admission to any space that calls itself civil. Sometimes silence is dignity, and sometimes it's permission. And the difference is the line you draw for yourself when the world tries to erase you. I drew mine at 1A. I drew it for me and for Jacob, and for anyone who's ever been asked to move out of a space they earned because someone else was uncomfortable. If this story lit even a small fire in you, do something with it. Drop a comment right now. Tell me what part made you angry, what part made you breathe easier, what part you disagree with. If it were you, what would you have done? Do you think we went too far or not far enough? Share this with someone who needs a nudge to speak or someone who needs a mirror held up. Like the video if you want more stories that don't just entertain, they hold the room to account. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next time an ordinary moment turns into a turning point. And if you've got your own window seat story, put it below. I'll be reading. We all will.